Australian gyms finally reopening this month as restrictions ease further, the statistics that the mainstream media like to look over or keep from us, and the fears that should be quenched as we begin to go back outside and reintegrate ourselves in society. What's going on, guys? This is Hayden coming at you with another episode of the Philosophy Podcast, a show about life science and philosophy. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the reopening of the world once again, the fears that are being slowly quelled, the realization that it's been 3 months or more than 3 months for some people being in lockdown, and that thought alone is insane, but it's good that we are slowly getting back to normal in a way where slowly, obviously there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be still a lot of fear. People are still going to be afraid of doing certain activities, afraid of touching certain things. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about the reopening of the gyms. And we're also going to be going through some statistics and some things that are being talked about in America, especially with the CDC, and hopefully that'll give people a little bit of positivity going back to the gym, going back to their regular activities that they have missed. But I think obviously with a lot of these, this terrible situation that's going on at the moment in America and around the world, the big division, the protesting, the rioting, the looting, this I think I should just address real quickly. I think that no matter what side of the fence that you may be on in this whole debate, this whole topic, no matter what your stance is, it's clear that people are being affected, people are upset, people are hurting, and regardless of the stance that you have, regardless of what political side of the fence you are on, you can't deny that people are being impacted, people are upset, and that alone is something that we should be not just ridiculing or swiping away. We should be thinking about what's going on. We should be trying to be a little bit more empathetic about that. I also think that we as a whole, humans as a whole, we need to start pushing out of this group identity politics game that we've been playing for so long, where everyone's getting boxed inside these groups of male, female, black, white, whatever. Once we get away from this identity politics game, we can begin to deconstruct that categorization of us all, where we are looked at just from our group perspective rather than what we should be looking at, which is the individual. We should be looking at each individual as their own entity, as their own person that gets around, has their own beliefs, has their own goals, and of course their own unique experiences, their own stories to tell, their own history. By looking at everyone based upon what they look like, based upon what gender they are, based upon who they're sexually attracted to, we remove so much of that person. We disregard and discard everything about that person that makes them unique. And that is something that makes life so great. We are all different. We do all have these different experiences and stories to tell and desires that we want to reach. And by integrating each of us inside a society where we can most of the time get along, where we can most of the time feel safe, that's something that's really powerful. That's a really powerful thought to think about, that we are able to do that. And on top of that, I think as well that by putting labels on us from a category perspective, we take away the ability for the individuals inside each of these groups that have been formed to not have their say, to be immediately boxed inside this one encompassing voice. And there's a problem there, because people inside each group are not all the same. And by just labeling them to be all the same, to label them all as having the same thought, there's going to be problems straight away, because inside the group, some people be like, I don't believe that, I don't think that, and I don't want that. But just because people are grouping them inside that one group, too bad, you have to think like that. Which is why during such a chaotic and divisive time like this, there are videos being shared around such as these two.
So I'm here today because I heard about a demonstration on, the George Floyd event, situation, which I'm going to be honest about it. It's wrong that, anything like that should happen, okay? It's very wrong. My problem is it shouldn't be an opportunity for a group of people to use that as an excuse or to come across as victims. No one is a victim here. The only victim here is George Floyd. Let's be very clear. Everybody knows that black kills black more than anything. You know that. When black people kill black people, they don't come out and do this crap. The only time they do this crap is when a white person touches them. They're the racists. They are the racists. Because white cops, it's wrong for a white cop to kill a black person, that's for sure. But if it matters, it should matter at all times.
So what are you fighting for? What are you fighting for? You're not here to fight injustice. You're here to cause drama.
Message will be stop violence. It's not about blacks.
In a unicorn world. That's not a
Stop the
unicorn
violence,
world.
period.
Okay, since you're so...
You guys are saying blacks are oppressed. I am black, I'm not oppressed.
That's
I am
good for you.
free.
That's good for you. That's an individual person. What about a systemic issue?
Where? I am black. I've always wanted to be. I have I do what I want. You have the skills. This is a country where you have the skills. You want to do what you want. You do it. Stop forcing on people to accept that they're oppressed. They are not. I am not oppressed. I am black. Stop making people accept that they're oppressed. You're forcing a rhetoric into your minds, which is not true. That's my point. Violence is wrong, period. It's not about blacks.
The problem that bothers me, you says Black Lives Matter. I've worked here part-time. Plus, I'm a part owner of this store. You said Black Lives Matter. Why don't you choke me? I'm black.
Tell him, sister.
Look what you did to my store.
Tell him, sister.
Look what you did to my store.
Tell him, sister. That's right, because I got they back. These are my
Look.
dudes right here. Good
Look at
men.
the things you've done.
Good men.
Look.
For Black Lives Matter.
We've been here all night cleaning up. All night cleaning.
And you got black people
Now.
standing right here with them. Black
Tell
people.
me
That's right.
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
You lied. You wanted to loot the store. You needed money. Get a job like I do. Stop stealing. This is the neighborhood. We're trying to build it up and you tearing it down.
So with that said, we're going to go ahead and first take a look at the CDC's current best estimates for the case fatality rate from the virus. So as you can see on the screen, I've got a table up and we've got a few scenarios, but we're going to take a look at just the scenario 5. So the current best estimate. So this, of course, is subject to change. This, of course, is, of course, different to what it was initially, and it might be different a week from now, months from now, a couple of years from now. But right now, we can look at this and it gives us a little bit of a guideline to what's going on. So you can see here the case fatality ratio, which is the amount of deaths over the amount of cases of the coronavirus. You've also got other things to look at as well, though, so you can't completely take the CFR into consideration. You've also got the crude mortality rate, which is the amount of deaths over the total population, which is basically the probability that someone will die from the disease. Then you also have the infection fatality rate. So that'll be the total number of deaths over the total number of cases, which is, of course, difficult to determine because there's going to be so many people that are asymptomatic that never got tested. There's going to be people that had the virus and didn't want to get tested, and that includes up to today. People might just get a little bit of a flu and just be like, oh, I'm not going to go out and I don't want to get tested. I don't want to go through that drama. So they're just going to, that statistic goes overlooked. But still, we'll take a look at this. And so the first thing we can see here is that for ages 0 to 49, you've got a 0.05% chance of passing away with the disease. So just moving the decimal point 2 points to the right for all of these numbers, for the parameter value, from ages 50 to 64, you're looking at a 0.2% chance. 65 plus, 1.3%, and with the overall 0.4%. So this, of course, is a probability. This is all potentially subject to change. This is all potentially subject to be affected by multiple other variables, multiple other factors, such as your body's ability to fight the virus, access to treatment, comorbidities, even passing away from the virus in a couple of years or a couple of months due to your body becoming a little bit affected or damaged, I guess, by the virus. So again, ages 0 to 49, you've got a 0.05% chance of passing away with the virus. From ages 50 to 64, 0.2%. 65 plus 1.3, and the overall 0.4%. Now, I'm not telling you these numbers from my opinion. Again, this is the CDC's, and I'm also not trying to make light of the situation. I understand the severity of numbers like these, because inside these numbers, there are thousands of people that have not only been impacted by it, but there are thousands of people that have passed away from the virus. So these numbers are not, I'm not talking about them to make light of this situation at all. I'm just trying to present some statistics to hopefully help people to overcome their huge amounts of fear for this virus, for going out and about and touching the elevator button, touching the pedestrian crossing button, shaking people's hands. It's good to know these kinds of numbers, because this, in a way, is a little bit positive. We should be able to start being a little bit more optimistic about all of this as we move out of this lockdown, as we begin to go back to our regular way of life. And knowing data like this can help people just to realize, okay, I'm in the 65 plus group. It might be there's a little bit higher chance than being under 64 as the stats say here, but it's still good to see numbers like this, because you can begin to assess your risk a little bit more and to not live in fear so much, and just in a way be cautiously optimistic about things, because seeing numbers like this, they are low, but they are still significant enough to have an effect upon people. So we still need to be careful, but hopefully for those who are worrying, maybe this will clear up their mind a little bit. Maybe, you can go ahead and find this data yourself on cdc.gov. Just type in the coronavirus parameter values, and you'll be able to read through all of this and maybe quell some fears. But how worried should we be as we begin to go back to work, as we begin to go back to the gym, to restaurants, to nightclubs, to house parties, to just getting around and, touching elevator buttons and touching the pedestrian crossing button? One thing I'd like to also talk about here is what the CDC is saying about how coronavirus spreads. And you can see on this page here, of course, we all know that its main point of transmissibility is via person to person. We know that it's, that we're looking at the 1.5 meter distance of the 6 feet, which is ideal to ensure lessening the chance for contracting the virus if you come into contact with other people. So that'll be, coughing and sneezing. And so those kinds of things you want to be thinking about when it comes to the transmission. We, of course, already knew this, but we already have been living in, I guess, fear for this. We've been washing our hands like crazy and making sure we don't touch our face. And that's something that we do want to continue, but we want to potentially remove the fear for contracting the virus just by walking past someone. You're not just going to magically contract the virus. If someone walks past you in the street, you're probably not going to get it, especially if they're wearing a mask, and maybe you're wearing a mask, because the virus is not just, around us. We're not just like pushing it out into the atmosphere. It has to be passed along via droplets, via saliva, via the coughing, the sneezing, which is why we've been able to go to the supermarket, Bunnings, get around, walk past people on the path without so many people getting infected. And this is a positive thing to think about, because provided you wash your hands, provided you just keep your distance from people, provided you don't go and touch your face or your eyes after touching things you don't know where they've been or who's touched it before. And one other thing as well the CDC is talking about is when it comes to spreading on surfaces, so, getting packages delivered to you, or the elevator buttons, the pedestrian crossing, this is not something they're saying that is the main way for the virus to spread. So you can see here, the virus may spread in other ways. It may be possible that a person can get COVID-19 by touching a surface or object that has the virus on it and then touching their own mouth, nose, or possibly their eyes. But this is not thought to be the main way the virus spreads. But we are still learning more about how this virus spreads. So this is a good thing if we consider that, well, if we touch something unknown, if we go somewhere where we're not completely sure of who's been there or who's touched what or who has what, we can, just pay attention to not touching our face, washing our hands as soon as we can when we have come home from that place. If we get a delivery, we don't have to be too worried about, we better spray it all down and don't touch it for a few days. And you can see here, I've got this article up as well where they talk just about this. So this article's from The Independent, titled "Coronavirus: What's the Risk of Catching COVID from a Surface?" So they go into detail about the transmission in this article, and I'll just read out some quotes for you. So here, what they're saying is that high-touch surfaces like railings and doorknobs, elevator buttons, are not the primary driver of the infection in the United States. This is Erin Bromage, a comparative immunologist and biology professor at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. But it's still a bad idea to touch your face, she says. If someone who is infectious coughs on their hand and shakes your hand and you rub your eyes, yes, you're infected. Someone's drinking from a glass and you pick it up near the rim and later rub your eyes or mouth, you're infected. But like Julia Marcus says down here, who is an infectious disease epidemiologist and assistant professor in the Department of Population Medicine at Harvard Medical School, it's a big title, there's a long chain of events that would need to happen for someone to become infected through contact with groceries, mail, takeout containers, or other surfaces. And the last step in that causal chain is touching your eyes, nose, or mouth with your contaminated hand. So the best way to make sure the chain is broken is washing your hands. And we all know this already. So if we just pay attention to that, if we go to the different places, if we're not at home, we just washing our hand as much as we can, carry the sanitizer around. And that brings me to my point of the gyms. And so, of course, if you live in Australia, you'll be aware that the gyms are now finally opening to the public. They have been open for certain states for a couple of weeks now. So, for example, in Western Australia, they've been open since May 18, but they had a limitation of how many people they could have in there. So, of course, that's probably going to start evolving even more now alongside New South Wales opening up on June 13, so this coming weekend. Also, South Australia has been open since the 1st of June. Again, they had the capped limit as well, so that'll slowly start to probably evolve over the next couple of weeks. Victoria is set to reopen on June 22. Queensland, June 13, so the same as New South Wales, and Tasmania, gyms are expected to reopen from June 15. So a lot of people have been saying it's been a bit weird how we've had Bunnings open, Woolworths open, even recently clubs and pubs opening, and gyms are still closed. And so if you think about the poker machines at clubs, you've got... That's like a perfect place for the disease to spread, because people are going to be sitting there for hours potentially of using the poker machines and not getting up and washing their hands every now and then. Maybe they're coughing and sneezing all over. They're not going to wipe down the machine after they've used it either. And that's the complete difference when it comes to a gym, because you're looking at people coming to the gym because they want to look after their mental and physical health and get moving again after this such a big lockdown. They're going to be conscious. They're going to be smart of what they're doing inside the gym. So they're not going to be leaning the barbells, walking around, coughing on each other. They're going to be conscious, and if they're going to be sick, they're going to be staying home. And of course, in gyms, we've got disinfectant, you've got soap, you've got sanitizer, and that's going to be a good combatant for getting back to the gym, for making sure gyms don't spread the disease. And like I said, in contrast to the pubs and clubs, it's a complete different story. You've got the sanitizer, you've got the disinfectant in the gym. So once people complete their set, complete using a piece of equipment, they're going to be wiping it down, and the next person's probably going to do the same thing. So it's going to be pretty safe going back to the gym for all those people that may be afraid of going back to the gym, of going back to their yoga studios, of going back to the hairdresser, going back to Kmart, going back to these places. What I've been reading, so not only the CDC stats, but also those epidemiologists and immunologists from that article, provided you're being careful, keeping your social distance, keep washing your hands, making sure you're not coughing over everyone, sneezing and whatnot, that's going to change the whole game as we begin to really get back to normal life now. And this is positive stuff to think about. We've got the data, like I've been talking about before. It's subject to change, obviously. It might be completely different in a few weeks, few months, few years from now. But right now, when we look at data like that, we have to go into it with a level of optimism, because we can't just be constantly living in fear. We can't just be losing the activities, removing our freedom, and just wanting to just stay at home now all the time. So this is good stuff that we can start to implement in our life. And obviously there's going to be some changes. Hopefully we're going to stay conscious of our hygiene, especially when we go into places like the gym. It is funny though that during this lockdown that industries like construction have been open, and you've got people getting inside a little elevator and then going up to the top floor and working inside a little apartment as they tile. And so we've got it for the gyms for New South Wales. It's going to be 100 capped limit on June 13, and I don't think they've actually specified on the size of the gym. So you could have a Bunnings-sized gym with just 100 people, or you could have a news agency-sized gym with 100 people. So I don't think they've actually confirmed how many people per square meter, but it's a good start that we have been finally allowed to open up the doors. Like I said, there's a lot of people rely on the gym for their mental and physical health, but it's also been a big hit for trainers and coaches and people, the staff that work in the gyms, cleaners even. All these people have been out of work for so long, and it's good that we're finally able to get access again, to be able to not only get moving again, but also for a lot of people to start earning again. And that's going to be good for, obviously, thousands of people. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How do you feel about Australia finally reopening again and places opening up and being able to go back outside, be able to get back into the activities that you've been missing out on for the last 12 weeks? You can let me know by jumping on panosophy.com. There you'll find each individual episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment down below, hit that like button, and if you can, and it would really help me out, is to hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to this on any type of podcast platform, if you've got a spare couple of minutes, it would be great if you'd left a review. And I guess that's about it for this week. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.